My name is Shiretha Krieger. I'm 43 years old and I've lived in Vegas for 42 years. So it all started the day I gave birth to my son. It was a very different type of day. God had kind of showed me what was going to happen months in advance, but I had no idea that it was going to turn out the way that it did. So I had my son, everything was going okay. My mom and his father, they didn't really get along at the time. They were cordial, if you would say, but they didn't really get along at the time. So we fast forward to I give birth to my son. I had a C-section and I spent 4 days in the hospital, and he spent 22 days in the NICU for an issue that we never really found out what was wrong with him. But it was, enough of a concern that he needed to stay. So we'll move forward to the day that I got out of the hospital, which, like I said, was 4 days after I gave birth to my son. My mom came and she stayed with me for that day. But after that, I was virtually left on my own. I had no one to help me to take care of myself, to, do any of the things that I needed to do after having a C-section. And anybody that's had a C-section knows that that's a very critical time. And especially when you have a child, you can suffer from postpartum depression and things like that. Now, given I already had a history of suffering from PTSD, and then you compile that with postpartum depression and being left alone without your baby for 22 days and 11 days alone at home by yourself, you do the math. You can kind of see where my headspace is at. I did have one visitor in that time, and it was my sister-in-law. She came and she sat with me for the day, but virtually I was left alone. They would pick me up to go take care of my son at the hospital to see him daily, but then they dropped me back off as if, that's all. I had nobody to cook for me, nobody to help me wash up, nobody to help me dress my wounds, none of that. A month later, I found myself back under the knife. I almost died because my gallbladder had ruptured inside of me. It had got gangrene, and I had to have an emergency surgery. So here I am back under the knife, 2 months after already getting out of the hospital with a newborn, and the same thing happens again. I'm virtually left alone to take care of myself. One of my good friends came over and she's like, "Where's your help?" And I says, "You're looking at it." And she says, "You have no one here to help you? You have a newborn." And I said, "Yeah, this is what it is. It's just me and my baby and my older daughter." And she says, "Wow, I can't believe that." So I remember I was attending a church here in Vegas, and we had decided we were going to have a revival. And so I remembered saying, "God, I need you to move for me because this thing is just too heavy for me. I don't know how I'm going to make it." I says, "I'm at the point where I'm just ready to end it all." But then I kept thinking about my kids and how they would feel if, I was gone, and that would keep me going another day and keep me going another day. But one day the pressure had just got so unbearable. So I went to the revival the first night and I was like, "God, I need you to move on my behalf," because I had already started planning where I was going to commit the suicide. It was going to be at the end of the 215 in Cheyenne. I already knew how I was going to do it. I was just going to go and virtually just speed up and drive as fast as I could and crash however I landed, and that was just going to be it. So the first night of the revival, nothing happened. Second night of the revival, I says, "God, look, I need you to move in a mighty way. I'm having family issues, I'm having all these suicidal thoughts." Day 2, nothing. I says, "God, this is the last night." And I had my stuff ready in the car, and I had my plan all made out. I said, "This is the night I'm going to do it. If you don't move by the end of this service, it's over." And as I was getting ready to get in my truck, I saw a nail in my tire. I said, how did that nail get there? And it just kind of just bothered me. So I'm driving all the way. I said, I probably won't even be able to commit suicide, right? Because I got this nail in the tire. And it'll be just my luck that the tire will blow out and keep me from doing it. But I was still determined that I was going to do it. And I told God, I said, if you don't move tonight, it's it. That's it. So the third service progressed, and it showed the same signs as, service 1 and service 2. It seemed like it wasn't going to go anywhere. And so I remember, I believe his name is Superintendent Bronson now. He's over at City of Refuge Church. He was doing the revival at the church that I attended. And I remember he called up for prayer. He had got a word from the Lord, and he just opened up the altar. And so I went up for prayer, and there were some ladies, they prayed for me. And they were praying, and I'm not knocking anybody, but there was this older lady. She was an elderly woman, and she walked over to me, and she just kind of looked at me. And she laid her hands on my stomach, and she just began to pray. And she must have prayed for about 5 minutes, and all of a sudden, all I remember is I went up in tongues. And I remember to this day exactly what she says. She says, talk to him, baby. Tell him everything that's going on. And like I said, I just went up in tongues, and I was crying, and the next thing I knew, I was laid back in the chairs. I felt this feeling of something being snatched up off of me. And when I came to, I knew that I could make it another day. And God met me there that night at that revival. I asked him to show up, and he showed up for me. And what that let me know is that no matter how low I may feel in life, I know that God cares about me. I know that there's nothing that he won't do for me. I know that there's nothing that he won't save me from if I come to him and ask him. I'm not saying the rest of my life has been perfect. There have still been other struggles. But in each one of those struggles, I know that I can still go to God, and I know that I can tell him, and I know that he hears me. And I have no doubt in my mind that there's nothing that he won't deliver me from. So I would like to say today my life it's so much better because I'm still here. Even with the ups and downs, even with all the pain and suffering, even with all the joys, today I am still here. I matter to God. And that's one of the greatest feelings that you can ever feel, is when you know that you matter, you know that your life has value. I wasn't, an accident or anything like that. I was planned. And that's a great feeling. And today is just, it's so much better than it was then. I don't know if anybody else has ever struggled with suicidal thoughts or even went as far as to take their own life. But I just want to let you know that God can. If I can leave you with anything, is just to let you know that God can. He can. I overcame that because of my relationship with Christ. It wasn't like I didn't know who to call on. I called on him, and I called on him daily, and I called on him when I was in pain, and I just really called on him and let him know, God, I need you. I'm asking you, I'm pretty much begging you to help me. And I overcame that by his blood. If he never died on the cross for me, I would never have the opportunity to be able to call on him. And so I am an overcomer. And my testimony is proof that I overcame. The fact that I'm still sitting here is proof that I overcame, and I want to let you know that you can overcome too. My name is Shiretha Krieger, and I overcame suicidal depression by the blood of the Lamb and the word of my testimony.